It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Here we go. Stop from the gun to the touchdown. It is caught. Touchdown.
This is BS Sports.
And welcome in. And I realize I left my water over there, so we're just gonna thirst ourselves. We're just gonna die of thirst by the end of the show. Welcome in on a Victory Tuesday for my Lions. I'm wearing a Pistons shirt because I figure I hadn't worn the Cade Cunningham shirt in a while, and I don't know, I just needed a new shirt to wear. Welcome in. So this week was quite the hectic week for the NFL. We got a lot to talk about. Upsets galore. A pretty interesting week of college football as well, minus, oh, excuse me. Oh, geez, I'm dying. Excuse me. Oh, my goodness, I'm just dying immediately. As soon as the show starts, I just start dying. No Seth this week, as can be seen. The Home Depot has decided to take him away to a dark, dark place, and he can't even see his hands. His hands. Can't see them. But I guess I will start. Do I want to start with college or do I want to start with the NFL? The NFL's on the thumbnail, so the NFL's on the thumbnail. We're gonna start with the NFL, okay? So first, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my Lions beating the Falcons, defending the den, if you will. 20-6 victory over the Falcons. I got a couple of takeaways here. All right, takeaway number one. His defense showed out. They allowed just 6 points from the Falcons all game. 3 points each half, which is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. As a team, let me see if I can find the total sacks. I don't know if it actually, wait, I can do that in the box score. What am I doing? Total sacks. We had 7 total sacks, 11 TFLs. So essentially, 18 of the plays that the Falcons ran on offense were for a loss in some way, right? Whether it's QB goes down or whether player goes down for a loss, it was TFL. And that was pretty much the story of the day. You had pretty much everybody on defense getting their name called. You had Benito Jones getting the first sack of the day. I was like, wait. If you go back and watch the live reaction broadcast, I was like, wait, Benito Jones? The guy from the preseason? I didn't even know he was on the D-line. I didn't know he was starting, but hey, man, credit to Benito Jones. He got himself a sack. Love to see that. Aiden Hutchinson with a couple of sacks and the game-winning fumble recovery, a strip sack on Desmond Ridder. It was great stuff from the defense. I mean, hey, even my man Craig Reynolds apparently had a tackle. I don't know how that happened. I actually don't know how that happened. It was a combined. It wasn't a solo tackle. But hey, even the backup running back had a tackle, and that's something. I don't know how that happened. I'm genuinely curious about that. You know what no, because I don't know how that happened. I'm like genuinely curious. How did Craig Reynolds get a tackle? I don't remember that at all. But you also had guys like Tracy Walker step up, become the starting safety since C.J. Gardner-Johnson goes down. Jack Campbell gets his first NFL sack as well as a TFL for him. He had 6 total tackles himself. Alex Anzalone, the captain, the veteran linebacker out there, he was making plays. Charles Harris had a sack and a couple of TFLs. Melon Fonmu had a TFL. Derek Barnes had a sack and a TFL. I mean, it was like basically if you were on the defense, you probably got a sack and you probably got TFL. Like it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was great to see. It really was. It was really great to see after giving up, 37 points to the Seahawks. You stop probably one of the most effective run offenses in football. And Bijan Robinson, I mean, did he even play? Like his numbers don't indicate that he did. I mean, you held Bijan to 33 yards rushing. 33 yards on 10 carries. That's an average of 3.3 a carry, which is mid. It's not amazing, but like his longest run was an 11-yard run. I mean, if that's not stopping one of the hottest running backs right now in the league in Bijan Robinson, I really don't know what is. I really don't, because that to me was fantastic. Now in the pass game, it was a little bit more difficult. It wasn't awful. You only give up 201 yards receiving, but their leading receiver was Kyle Pitts, who had 41 yards. I can't be upset about that. And look, Desmond Ridder is awful. Okay, I had never seen Desmond Ridder play because the Lions had not played the Falcons in a couple of years. Desmond Ridder is very, very bad. Like, you thought maybe with the Falcons, you had Mariota last year and he lost the job to Ridder, and you think maybe, okay, Ridder's young, maybe he'll get used to this. No, this guy's not a very good quarterback. He's a backup if ever I've seen one, and even then, he's not one of the better looking backups, frankly. Which sucks because for all intents and purposes, it doesn't seem like a terrible person. I mean, I haven't really heard anything bad about him, so I would assume that he's not a bad person. But speaking of the defense, Brian Branch, I mean, I didn't say his name for a reason because he deserves an entire segment. 3 TFLs, 11 total tackles, all of them solo. He had 2 passes deflected. He could have had an interception as well. It could have been a one-handed interception. And I got to say, Brian Branch is turning into what I believe to be one of the front runners for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. He is all over the field. He is stopping the run. He is stopping the pass. He is, for lack of a better term, he's great. He could be one of the steals of the draft because this guy's a first-round talent, and he got taken in the second round. Like, one of the points that was made, I believe on Monday, by some, fans or whatever, is like, we might have better second-round picks this year than we do first-round picks. And that's not even to disgrace, Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell had a fine game. He had 6 tackles, 3 of them solo, as well as the sack and TFL. And Jahmyr Gibbs also had a great game, or he had a good game. Jahmyr Gibbs had a good game. I wouldn't say great. But Brian Branch, to me, first 3 games of the year, he looks like the best player out of our draft, hands down. And I seriously do believe if he continues at the pace he's going right now, he really could be competing for Defensive Player of the or Defensive Rookie of the Year, not Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, if he goes nuts, he could be Defensive Player of the Year. But I doubt they're gonna give a rookie Defensive Player of the Year unless he is like Sauce Gardner times a million, essentially. But Brian Branch right now, he's climbing for me as one of my favorite players on this team, and then secondly, one of the great players on defense just generally. Like he seems like he's an absolute stud, and I think he's a guy that you're going to want to keep for a good amount of time. However, there was a few things that I wasn't too happy about. Okay. So obviously we only win the game 20-6, and that is due to some offensive flubs. So Jared Goff had a good game, not a great game. 22 for 33, 243 yards, he had an interception and a touchdown, as well as a rushing touchdown. So technically 2 touchdowns on the day for him. And he was just kind of okay. He had to get rid of the ball relatively quickly. And I think a lot of the limitations of this offense was due to the hurt O-line. I mean, no Hal Vaitai, no Taylor Decker. That's 2 guys who are really solid O-linemen that you lose. And on top of that, you lose David Montgomery. So you had 3 guys on your offensive side of the football that are integral to that side of the ball being productive. And Jahmyr Gibbs, on that note, he had 17 carries for 80 yards, 4.7 average. Okay. I mean, I'm not jumping up and down. I'm not, yelling from the treetops, but I'm also not like totally upset about that. I mean, you rush for 80 yards. What am I going to do? Scream at you? Like, no. His long was a 21-yard run, and he showed like he had some bursts. And I think as the game went on, Jahmyr was doing a much better job of reading where the line was going, where the holes were, and he was getting some nice moves in there. And again, you rush for 80 yards, and you look like frankly, you look like a way better running back than Bijan Robinson did against us. I'm going to take that as a win. Like, either way, because these two guys' names are going to be linked for their careers because they're the two running backs that were taken in the first round this past draft. And in their one-on-one game, obviously they don't face one another, but Jahmyr Gibbs just looked like the better running back, full stop. You also had Craig Reynolds, who came in a couple of times. Zonovan Knight, I mean, he looked fine. I mean, he only rushed for 13 yards, but, you know, he did his job, I suppose. He had an 8-yard rush. That was pretty much his whole day. Receiving, though, Amon-Ra St. Brown, another 100-yard game. And Sam Laporta, that is another story. He is another guy, tight end out of the second round. He had 8 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the guy is turning into one of Jared Goff's favorite targets in the offense. And if you got a, weapons room of St. Brown, Sam Laporta, hopefully when Dave Montgomery's back, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams is going to be coming off a suspension in a couple of weeks here. I mean, the offense so far through the first 3 games has looked pretty good. And especially in that Seahawks game, that offense looked excellent in the Seahawks game. And, this game, it played to what we expected, which was it was hurt and you were limited on weapons. But even still, you still scored, 20 points, 13 in the first half. And the defense obviously was the main story. And you had a couple of big time plays that you, unfortunately, were, for one way or the other, were not able to fully answer on. But I think that was just due to, just sort of when you lose guys on offense, especially in the O-line, it just kind of messes with the general feel of the offense. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about that. But overall, I'm not yelling and screaming, but the offense does need some work, and it's going to need to play a lot better, I think, if you want to beat Green Bay. Because, Green Bay, I don't think they're an amazing team, but you're probably not going to hold them to 6 points. I mean, especially when you're on the road and it's Thursday night. So, we'll see about that. And the other thing about the offense was obviously the Jared Goff interception. So the interception was very untimely because it was like, oh no, here we go. The Falcons can march down the field, and luckily the defense stopped them. But Jared Goff, I believe, pointed that out as like the worst throw in his career. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I hope that, the turnovers are not a theme of this team because we're now 3 games in and we've turned the ball over every single game. And in the Seahawks game, we turned it over 3 times. I think this is after 3 games, it seems like potentially this could be a trend with this team is sometimes our inability to keep the ball when we have it. So I think ball security is going to be sort of a focal point, especially going into Thursday. I don't want to see a turnover. I don't want to see an untimely intercept. If you're going to throw an interception, throw it when we're up 14 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And even then, that's being a little generous. But if you're going to do it in a time, or throw an interception as the last play of the half or something. Something where it doesn't matter. But in this case, going through, I hope Jared Goff, I hope that, obviously it's probably not realistic to believe that that's his last interception of the year, but I certainly hope it is. I mean, he was so good down that 10-game stretch last year where he was not picking the ball off. The ball was not getting picked off at all. So I don't think it's realistic to believe he's going to go, what is it? We have 14 more games with no interceptions. I don't believe that for a second, but I would be very upset if it's every couple of games he's throwing an interception, or heaven forbid, every game he's throwing an interception, even if we do end up winning the game. I just don't like the turnover. I just don't. So the other thing that sort of annoyed me was the penalties. So let me see if I can find. Yeah, here we go. So we had a total of 10 penalties for a total of 119 yards. That to me is unacceptable, especially at your home. You got to play a clean game. You're not going to be able to get away with that against most teams. You just won't. So that needs to be cleaned up, especially. Now, a few of the penalties I thought were a little ridiculous, especially the one on Brian Branch for unnecessary roughness, I think it was. Like, when Bijan was the one who lowered his helmet and Brian Branch made a clean tackle. He just made Bijan's helmet fell off because Brian Branch was just playing the game. Like, I didn't really understand why that was a penalty. But I guess that even if you get rid of that, I don't know, what does that get rid of? 15 yards, there's still 9 penalties for 104 yards. That's still way too much when you compare it to Atlanta, who played a largely clean game. Only 4 penalties for 24 yards. So you got to clean that up. And the red zone offense is also, you need to be able to score there. Only 1 for 4 in the red zone last week. And again, I think if we get some pieces back, if we get Taylor Decker back, if we get Dave Montgomery back, if we get, I don't think Hal Vaitai is coming back anytime soon. But, hey, if Colby Swordsdale, if he can play a good game, he's going to have to step up because a lot of our O-line is getting beat up. I know Matt Nelson just got put on the IL. So Colby Swordsdale, the rookie out of William & Mary, he's going to have to step up. We drafted him for a reason. He's a depth piece, and maybe he takes a starting role. I don't know. Maybe we get the steal of the draft, and it's an offensive lineman out of William & Mary. I doubt it, but, we'll see. Brad Holmes has been known to take pretty nice players late in the draft. But with all that being said, I'm overall satisfied with the Lions this week. Now they got a really tough game on the road, divisional matchup. Last time they played Green Bay in Lambeau, they won the game, but now they got a new quarterback. They got pretty much a new offense, right? Because it's manned by a new quarterback. So we'll see what happens as the game gets closer. Moving on, some other stories around the NFL. Upsets galore. Okay, we had the Colts beating the Ravens, the Texans beating the Jags, and my personal favorite, my absolute, just the joy of my day, was seeing the Cowboys lose on the road to the Cardinals, the worst team in football, a team that I thought wasn't going to win a football game, and they laid a massive egg. Now, let it be known, okay, that this is a warning, not only to, teams that potentially have to play the Cardinals, but the teams in general that have to play a team that seems like they're bad. Now, the Lions, after the Packers, they have to play the Carolina Panthers, who I just saw a stat that they are projected to give up the most QB pressures in NFL history. I don't care if they have given up 100 million sacks going into this game. You don't take any team lightly in this league. No, you just don't do it. Doesn't matter who you're playing. They're NFL teams. They're professionals. They go out to win. It's not like in college where you're, Michigan State playing Central Michigan and you can be a little, flippant by the third quarter. Can't do it in the NFL. And to me, with this Cowboys team, I always kind of feel this way about the Cowboys where, I think they just get a little too into it. And I think their fans feed into this where they always think, they're going to just sort of go in and be the team. And I think especially after the first 2 games where they were, lighting it up against the Giants and the Jets, and then they got the Cardinals, and you're like, oh, okay, we're gonna start 3-0 easily. It's gonna be no problem. This whole schedule is favoring us right now, and you go out there and lay an egg. Now, that's not to say their season is over. I mean, let's not forget that the Colts beat the Chiefs last year, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So I'm not gonna totally sell out on the Cowboys just yet. The other upsets, though, are interesting to me. So the Texans beating the Jaguars, now that's concerning for me because I really thought Trevor Lawrence and that offense, Travis Etienne and Calvin Ridley, I thought they were going to be pretty dang good. And, well, they haven't really been. I mean, I don't know how well the offense is, minus that game against the Chiefs. They really didn't play well offensively there. But other than that, I mean, they've been playing all right. I mean, they haven't been an awful team, but geez, man, I just don't feel good about that situation right now, especially if you lose to the Chiefs, okay, whatever. It sucks that it's at your home that you lose to the Chiefs, especially because you probably had AFC divisional round. This is the game. Chance to get some revenge. They're coming to our house. You lose that game, okay. Then you lose to the Texans with a rookie quarterback and an awful defense. And you let them put up, 17-0, I think it was at a certain point. And you can't do that. You just can't do that. And I know it's a divisional game, and those games are always a toss-up. It doesn't matter how bad the team is. It doesn't matter how good the other team is. It's always a toss-up. I mean, we saw a couple of years ago the Colts lose out on a playoff spot to the Jaguars, who at the time were awful. Like, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. The one that still baffles me, though, is the Ravens losing to the Colts. I mean, okay. So Lamar Jackson signs this massive deal offseason. He's negotiating for himself. He's proven his own worth, and everybody wants to believe in him. And this is now it feels like the third week in a row where the Ravens are really not all that impressed. I mean, they beat the Texans in a not amazing game. They beat the Bengals, and again, not an amazing game. And then they lose in, I think, overtime to the Colts. And it's like, this is now 3 weeks in a row where I can't feel all that confident in the Ravens. And look, they could be a playoff team, sure. They could definitely be a wild card team, but I don't know. It really sucks. I like Lamar. I wasn't a huge fan of the whole situation. I thought, I thought that he might be overpaid. And I don't know. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but I don't think he was worth the kind of money that they're paying him right now. And I think kind of showing it right now. He's gotten the weapons. He has an offense. He really doesn't have that much of an excuse. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Lamar Jackson can certainly pick it up. But his lack of postseason success, and now this back-to-back years where the offense just not clicking with him under center. It's gonna be a long one for Ravens fans, and I don't envy them. Other story around the league, and this is the one that in my 24 years of life, and probably another 3 lifetimes worth of 24 years, I don't think I have ever seen what happened to the Broncos on Sunday. Now, I didn't get to watch the game because it was out of my region. And also, I think, it was out of my region, and I don't think I would have been able to watch it anyway. Because of that game was at 1. So, no, I wouldn't have been able to watch it because the Lions were playing. And I'm just going you lost 70-20. You lose by 50 in general, that's pretty bad. You lose by 50 because the other team put up 70 points. 7-0. They had 2 running backs combined for 8 touchdowns. I think it was 2 running backs. I might be wrong. It was at least 2 different players who combined for 8 touchdowns. That is, and to put things in perspective, they had a chance to win that game 73-20 and break the all-time scoring record. And because they were so merciful to the Broncos, they said, no, I will do no such thing. And I got to say, Sean Payton looks like an idiot. He looks like a complete idiot. He looks like he has no idea what he's doing. And frankly, and this might seem harsh, I'd fire him for that. That is a fireable offense. You let a team put up 70 points. A team who last year, the Broncos, were actually really good defensively. I believe they finished at least in the top 10 defensively. For a time, they were a top 5 defense. And you, Sean Payton, not Nathaniel Hackett, whom you made fun of, who started with a better record through the first 3 games. You let a team score 70 on you. And I'm not here to say, no credit goes to the Dolphins, because Tua Tagovailoa and the Tyreek and all them cats, they know what they're doing offensively. Mike McDaniel seems like an offensive juggernaut as a coach. But Sean Payton was supposed to come in, be the voice of reason. be the voice of an NFL legend and a Super Bowl champion, guy who raised the Saints from the dead as a franchise. And he is single-handedly been a laughingstock. I mean, in all, the first game they lose to the Raiders. Okay, divisional game, whatever. It wasn't a great game for him. Fine. Second game, you lose to the Commanders at home and also lose on a Hail Mary. Or no, you get the Hail Mary. All right. So you look like you're feeling good. And then you fail to convert on the 2-point. And look, maybe that's not your fault, but you're losing in horrible fashion. And frankly, as far as you won the Hail Mary, shouldn't have come down to it. Shouldn't have come down to it. I mean, the Commanders, as far as I'm concerned, are not nearly way ahead of you, right? Like they are at least at your level if you're the Broncos. And frankly, maybe they should be a little bit higher, or maybe they should be a little bit lower than you, because you're supposed to be this Hall of Fame coach. And again, you let a team put 70 on you. That is fireable. I'm sorry. If Dan Campbell ever let a team put 70 points, we had one of the worst rosters in 2021. No team put up 70 points on it. None. No team put up more than 40. I mean, 40-ish in the 40s range, I think was the highest amount of points we gave up. And I think it was against the Eagles. You can't. You just can't let a team beat you by 50. Can't do it. You just can't do it. And look, Broncos fans, I'm sorry. Your team is in utter disaster. You're stuck with Russell Wilson, who looks absolutely cooked. And you might be stuck with this idiot for a head coach. This fraudster. I mean, this guy, this is screaming to me Mike Ditka circa New Orleans Saints. This is what this feels like. It feels a lot like, Mike Ditka, obviously a legendary Bears coach, won a Super Bowl with them. Then, a decade or so later, after, largely being unsuccessful, goes to the Saints and makes a complete idiot out of himself. I think we could be seeing a similar path with Sean Payton. And again, I've been saying it. Don't forget, Sean Payton had some of the best teams. And he failed to win any more than one Super Bowl. After Bountygate, after that whole thing, he had a team with, Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and he couldn't do anything with it. He just sucked. I mean, they just didn't win. I shouldn't say they sucked. They were consistently in the playoffs, but they just didn't win. And, now you're on a team with significantly less talent than you've ever had. And you just you look like a team that if it wasn't for you playing the Bears, you might not win a game. And speaking of the Bears, oh man, did I enjoy Sunday afternoon when the Bears played the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that my Lions, of course, were able to handle on Thursday Night Football. However, the Bears decided they did not want to play football that Sunday, and they lost that game 160 to 10 or something like that. Something around that range. And Justin Fields, who all I heard was just how great this guy was going to be. He's going to take a step forward. Look out for MVP Justin Fields. And let me just pull up the box score. Let's just see what the future MVP. I've been told the future MVP, Justin Fields. Okay. 11 for 22. 99 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. 3 sacks. And a QBR on ESPN of 18.4 with a quarterback rating on ESPN of 58.7. Now, to be fair to him, he also rushed for 47 yards. His longest rush was 17 yards. Justin Fields may or may not be the single worst quarterback in the NFL right now. He is beyond bad. He is laughably bad. It is, even I, who didn't like Justin Fields going into the season, who didn't believe in Justin Fields. Even I am shocked by just how garbage he is. I mean, it is beyond comparison. He is arguably, and I've seen some stat comparisons, he is arguably worse than Mitchell Trubisky was. And Mitchell Trubisky isn't even a starter. Like, the Bears right now look like one of the worst teams ever. And they look like complete idiots for trading away the first overall pick, where they could have taken CJ Stroud, who I didn't like going into this draft, but hey, credit where credit's due. The guy's looking pretty decent through the first 3 games, and he just had a great win over the Jaguars. They could have had at least Bryce Young, who, granted, doesn't look amazing, but if you had to ask me which quarterback would I rather have, Bryce Young or Justin Fields, I'll take Bryce Young. At least Bryce Young might have some upside. Justin Fields, he's just bad. And I got to say, there was a quote that I saw, and it just, I don't know if this is cruel, but it warmed my heart. So Justin Fields, I'm sorry, this is so mean, but I found it funny. I did. Justin Fields after the Chiefs game, and I quote, I'm looking at it like the big shit. Hold on, let me start that over. Justin Fields after the Chiefs game, and I quote, I'm looking at it like the big picture, life in general, to be honest with you. I think this past week has had me kind of look at it like, what are the important things in life? You know, that's a great question, Justin. And I gotta say, this is what Chiefs does. This is what losing to the Chiefs does to a man. I mean, he's out here having an existential crisis because the Chiefs put 42 on him and he can't pass for over 100 yards. Look, I don't know Justin Fields personally. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but wow, is he an abysmal NFL quarterback? He's lucky that he's on the Bears, where they really don't have a whole lot of options. I mean, who are they going? Are they going to go out there and start Nate Peterman? I don't think that's an option. You believed in this guy. You gave him what you assumed he wanted. You gave him a wide receiver in DJ Moore, and DJ Moore is a pretty good receiver, and he just sucks. Like, he's just bad. And I gotta feel bad for DJ Moore because he kind of felt like he probably, he got a bag of goods, and all he's got is, a bag of crap. Like, there are some people who had the Bears winning this division. And now, technically, mathematically speaking, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think if you said the Bears are going to win this division this year, given right now, I think most people would think you're insane. For good reason, because you would be insane. So, look, we'll see. Bears play the Broncos. Now, this is a game for the ages, in so much as it'll be the worst game maybe ever. So somebody's got to win. Although maybe not necessarily. They could tie, which, could you imagine if they tied 0-0? That's not going to happen. It's the NFL. It would be impossible for that to happen. Literally, there is no chance they tie. It is, I don't even think that's possible. Or there's no chance they tie 0-0. It's a chance that they tie. But if you tie, oh my gosh. Oh man. Usually good teams don't tie. It's usually the middling to bad teams that end up tying. But that's rough. So good luck, Bears fans. That's it's unfortunate. So moving on to the do I have any more NFL stuff? I don't think so. No, I don't. You know what? In between transitioning from NFL to college, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Tigers, we do have some baseball news. Tigers hired Jeff Greenberg as their general manager. So I have here an article from MLB.com written by Jason Beck, beat writer for the Tigers. Let me see. Here's a nice description of Jeff. Greenberg, son of the former Texas Rangers managing partner Chuck Greenberg, rose through the Cubs organization around the same time. 37-year-old followed a similar path out of Columbia Law School. serving as the director of baseball operations, director of pro scouting, assistant to the general manager, and associate general manager. So he spent a lot of time in the Cubs organization. Greenberg spent 3 years as an assistant general manager with the Cubs under Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins before jumping to the Blackhawks, with whom he oversaw strategic systems and processes while working to help modernize hockey operations. Now, the thing you're probably noticing there is, wait, he worked for the Blackhawks, like the hockey team? And this was the thing, like, there were some people who I think might have been trolling, or maybe they're just really stupid. But people were like, oh my gosh, we just hired a hockey GM to be our baseball general manager. Not true. The guy spent way more time in baseball, and also his role with the Blackhawks was very limited. I believe he only spent like a year with them, and also he was overseeing strategic systems. I don't even know what that means, but it's not like he was a scout. He's not a hockey brain. He was probably more so an analytics guy. But with that being said, I don't really have an opinion on this hire because, I mean, it really all depends on what this team does in the offseason. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing because, it just adds another person in the room to help with those trade deadlines, because the Tigers had a disaster of a trade deadline this past year. And it'll help get another voice in the room, I think, to not manipulate, that's not the right word, to encourage Chris Ilitch, the owner, to go out and spend money on guys. It won't just be Chris and Scott, or Chris, Scott, and AJ. It'll be Chris, Scott, AJ, and Jeff all saying, look, Chris, we understand you're interested in spending a lot of money. Miguel Cabrera is going to come off the payroll. Jonathan Scope's going to come off the payroll. A lot of guys are going to come off the payroll. You need to trust us. If this organization is going to do well, you got to listen to us. We're the 3 baseball guys. We're, actually competent human beings as far as baseball information. You're the pizza man. So he came out of Columbia, so he's not an idiot, and he went to law school. That's just so amazing. That's what he's doing. It's like Columbia, Harvard, law school. Like what are you doing baseball? Where, I mean, he's gonna make a lot of money, but still, it's just, hey, you know what? God bless Jeff. So we'll see. I think Scott Harris is a pretty smart guy. I don't think he's a fool by any means, and I think adding another guy in there to help out with trades and drafting and scouting and all that stuff, I think it's good. I think it's good to have basically 2 guys that you can look to, as opposed to having the whole thing, similar to like what we had with Al Avila, where you just had him basically just running the whole thing, and it was a total disaster. And I think this is a good move for the Tigers. We'll see what actually ends up happening over the next 3-4 years. But as it stands right now, I got no reason to hate it. But just thought I'd point that out because, it's some baseball. It's mostly football stuff this whole month, but we had some baseball. Speaking of sadness and sorrow and definite hope being lost, Michigan State played one of the most humiliating games they've played since the last humiliating game they played. They lost to Maryland at home by a score of 31-9. They were down 21-3 at the half. And look, I have a few takeaways. For one, turnovers, they sold the game. We turned the ball over, I think like 3 times. Like, I don't know if it actually shows. So interceptions, yeah, we threw 3 interceptions total. And a few of those were in situations, at least one of them was in a situation where we could have scored a touchdown to make it a little interesting late in the game. And you just can't do that. You just can't. You can't do that. You're not going to win most games throwing 3 interceptions. And Noah Kim, I mean, he just looked awful. He just looked bad. Noah Kim, 18 for 32, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. It's not going to do it. It's just not good enough. Now, to be fair, on 4th down, we were 3 for 4. So, like, it's not like we weren't necessarily moving the ball down the field. Although we weren't doing like an amazing job. We had a total of 376 yards of offense, which is okay. But the thing is, it's like we had more offense. We had the ball for longer. We had only a couple more penalties. But you turn the ball over 5 times. 5 times. One of them for a touchdown. That's not true. I don't think one of them was for a touchdown. You're not going to win the game. Like, you're going to get blown out 31-9. And you can't go down 21-3 at the half. And I get it. We don't have a head coach. I get it. But, like, you have to defend your house. And we look like a team that, frankly, might not win another game this year. And I'm scared to say that because this was a program that was once respected. Just 2 years ago, it was a respected program. And right now, we just look terrible. We just look terrible. And you can't turn the ball over that much. Now, I will say, at the half, adjustments were made, especially in the third quarter. I mean, we scored 6 unanswered points in the third quarter, and then we just let them get a 10. Like, we just gave them 10 in the fourth, and that was it. But, we weren't out of the game. Like, by the time the third quarter was coming, it was a couple possession game, and the defense looked more like it had an ability to stop. Like, there really wasn't a whole lot of massive plays, and Tua played Talua, I don't even know how to, Tunga Viola played a pretty good game, obviously, 21 for 36, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. But rushing, they really didn't have much of a rushing offense. 5 carries for their leading rusher for 38 yards, and their leading receiver only had 67 yards. Like, it wasn't like we were just, like, giving up massive plays. It was that we were beating ourselves. And as far as penalties, we had 6 penalties for 70 yards. Like, that's not great. It's not like the worst thing in the world. Like, if you're giving up less than 100 yards on penalties, it's not necessarily the metric, but, like, I'm not going to yell and scream that you had 6 penalties and they ended up for 70 yards because, some of these penalties, one penalty can give you an additional 15 yards or what have you. But, I mean, you're not going to win most games if you turn the ball over 5 times. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So, you got to figure it out. You got Iowa next week, this Saturday on the road. And that's going to be a tough game against a team that is really good on defense. And you're really not good on defense. This is now back-to-back games where you've let a team score more than 30 points on you. And I don't care that some of it was on turnovers. You gave them the ball. Like there's not an excuse. But the question for me now is it time to start Caden Hauser? So looking at the score, Caden Hauser came in, I believe, in the third or fourth quarter. He was 6 for 10 for 75 yards, and he had the 1 interception. But he looked a little bit more comfortable, and it looked like he had a bit more upside over Noah Kim, frankly. Like, Noah Kim to me is just, he never has taken that step. And I don't know if Caden Hauser will take that step. I don't. But, I mean, anything has got to be better than, Noah Kim, right? Or even if he's as good as Noah Kim, well, then what's the difference? At least Hauser is a freshman, and maybe he sticks around, and we can try to develop him. But as it stands, it's just not good in East Lansing. It's just not good at all. Like, nobody really is looking good for me. And while I think in theory today was actually the day you could have had a lot of guys transfer out, I don't think I heard anybody transfer out, and it seems like the guys don't want to leave. So credit to the players and credit to Harlan Barnett for trying to keep this train on the tracks. But I think the unfortunate truth is that as much as maybe these guys have fight in them and they want to win, I just don't know that they're good enough. I just don't know that they have good enough coordinators, and I just don't know that the talent is there for a lot of these guys. So we'll see what happens, but it's not looking good for Michigan State. But it is looking good for some other teams in college football. And we'll talk about it. I got 4 takeaways from this week in college football. Number 1, I'm sorry that I lied to you all people about Colorado, because that was awful. What happened to them against Oregon was like, I feel like every Colorado hater, every Pac-12 or Deion Sanders, like they couldn't stand it. They just didn't believe. they had a good weekend. We'll just say that. I'm trying to find the game. I believe it was, there it is. So, final score was Oregon 42, Colorado 6. And frankly, that 6 is fake because they scored that 6 points when Colorado or Oregon was up 42-0. So, great job, Colorado. You scored 6 points when you were down by 42. Hey, credit where credit is due. Bo Nix looks like a stud. 3 touchdowns for Bo Nix, 276 yards with a pick. Shedeur Sanders has his first very not good game. 20, or I should say very not good. Very just very game. 23 for 33, 159 yards. They had no rush. 5 carries for 31 yards from Hankerson. That was their leading rusher. And Weaver, their leading receiver, caught for 75 yards compared to Franklin for the Duckies. 126 yards and a couple of tutties. I mean, like, Oregon looked like the way better team. It just looked like Colorado was completely outmatched here. And in the AP polls, they got completely knocked off. And frankly, they deserved it because you don't lose 42-6 and stay on the top 25. It would have to be a really close 42-6. You know what I mean? It'd have to be just a real nail biter of a 42-6 blowout. But look, think about this game. If I'm going to take away anything, well, for Colorado, it's snap back to reality. And I thought maybe this could be for real. I thought maybe they could be a sneaky playoff team. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Unless if they go 11-1, even then it's a little tough with this loss. But the other thing that I want to take away from this is I feel like Coach Prime, who I really like Coach Prime. I want to start with that. I feel like he's kind of a sore loser, potentially. Now, the only reason I'm saying this, right, is because, Dan Lanning, head coach of Oregon, he kind of was stirring the pot here. He was talking trash before the game and then after the game about Colorado and how they're fake. And, well, frankly, to the victor goes the spoils. And the thing about Sanders to me is, I saw something today, and it just really annoyed me. Because to me, it's just so pathetic. It was I don't remember the exact quote, but essentially he was alluding to the fact that people were criticizing him because they're racist and they don't like to see a black head coach succeed. And so they're really happy when he fails because they just hate black people who succeed. And this to me is such a weak thing to say. It's like, my brother, not only are you known for talking crap, which go for it, man. If you want to talk the talk, hey, you've already won 3 times as many games as Colorado did last year, which isn't saying much, but still, you tripled their win count. And you could talk the talk. You had some really marquee wins, but you can't go and say when people point out genuine flaws about the situation and about the team that, they must just be a bunch of racists. Nobody cares that you're black. Nobody cared when you were a player in the NFL and people loved you. Nobody cared when you were winning 3 games that you were black. Nobody cared at any point. Nobody has ever talked about the fact that Deion Sanders is black, other than, I guess, Deion Sanders. Up to this point, nobody really cared. Look, I have no problem with him, trying to encourage, young, impressionable young men to, have some confidence, have a little bit of swagger to an extent. I mean, you don't need to be you don't need to really hem it in. I think some of his guys are going a little too far. I believe I was seeing something, and this could be not true. I'm just reporting what I heard. Something where they were before the game, they were really talking smack, especially to the coach. And I just think that's disrespectful. I think that's unbecoming of a team that should, have some confidence. You can talk a little bit of trash, have a little fun, have a little bantering, but to a point. You don't cross bridges. You don't need to be disrespectful to the head coach, especially. That to me, you don't insult. You can insult to an extent some of the players. Now, obviously, you don't talk about their parents or so. You don't cross a certain line. But you need to be respectful to other coaches because for one, they're the adults. Like they're the ones who are running the teams. And also it's just when you have a game like this, it's just ammunition, right? It's like all the players on the other team is going to be like, oh, they're going after our coach, our guy. Like that's just you're really shooting yourself in the foot, practically speaking. But as far as how I feel about Colorado, I still think that they're going to be a pretty good team this year. I think they could end up in the top 25. But they really got a tough go of things. They're going to have to face LSU, USC next week, and that could be a blowout as well. And I think that at that point, it's going to be a humbling point for Colorado. I think they're going to realize, okay, we're not there defensively by any means. We're probably not there offensively. But, book is out on us. People know Deion's legit. Just a matter of how well he can build the rest of the program. So, with that being said, got to move on to another game that surprised me a bit, and that was when Florida State had a rather tight game with the Clemson Tigers in overtime. Florida State wins this game 31-24, and this is a game where look, give credit to Clemson. I said, I think going into this week, this could be an interesting matchup, a nice ACC rivalry matchup. Clemson doesn't want to go down without a fight. And Florida State, credit for them for getting the win, but it really shouldn't have come down to this. I mean, you were down at the half 17-14. So granted, you came back, but no scoring in the fourth quarter. And then, finally getting through. And, to be fair, I wouldn't say that it was anyone in particular that had a bad. Jordan Travis played a pretty good game. Threw for 289 yards and a couple of tutties. The rushing game was not there. Benson, 7 carries for 25 yards. That's terrible. Looking at some of the other guys, you had Wilson. Johnny Wilson had 94 yards. Keon Coleman had 86 yards. Didn't have a single guy with over 100 receiving yards. I don't know. It seems like now we're doing back-to-back weeks where the Florida State Seminoles have not really looked like a top team. Now they've won, to give them that credit, but you're looking for that team that beat LSU, that really took them to the wood chipper, essentially, right? And we'll see what ends up happening. I'll have to take a look at what the schedule looks like next week, and we'll do that before we wrap up college football here. But I don't know. I was a bit disappointed by Florida State. I thought maybe they were going to have a really good game. And look, it was a well played game by Clemson. There's no disrespect to them at all. They're playing for their season, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the other takeaway was, since we were watching, Alabama got the job done. Okay. 24-10 victory over Ole Miss. Milroe didn't look great, but you know what? A win ugly is a win. And I got to give credit to their rushing game, because my man, Jace McKellen, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He ran for 105 yards and a touchdown. And look, if this Alabama team, I don't know that they're a playoff team, but they certainly could be a fun team. Like, they could certainly be a solid team. Your leading rushers rushing for over 100 yards. Yeah, you're probably going to win the game. And they did. They were down at the half, 7-6, mounted the comeback, and that's all that can be said. And I mean, was it pretty? No. Was it the Alabama that I grew up knowing? Not particularly, but it was a good win. So credit to them. They're trying to keep their season alive. And look, it's hard to bet against Nick Saban. But even with this win, still don't probably feel super confident about Alabama. But still, pretty nice win. They needed the win, and they got it done. If you're an Alabama fan, you're not going to be upset about that. Final note was, of course, I would say the game of the week, and a game in which I didn't even get to watch. But it was the game of the week I'm looking for. And this is why I like the ESPN, because they put the stats in a very nice way, and you can just have all the games in front of you, but it's very tiny, and I have to use my old man eyes to try to read the logos. Looking for, where is it? Where is this? It's somewhere. I know that it's somewhere. I don't want to control F because I want to just find it. All right. Fine. Oh, there it is. There. I didn't have to control F. It's fine. Ohio State with a signature win. No doubt about it. Signature win over Notre Dame, 17-14. Now, to be fair, good shot they don't win that game if Marcus Freeman knows how to count to 11. To be fair, good shot they do it. But you know what? A good team takes advantage of another team making a mistake. So I got to give credit to them. And did Kyle McCord look amazing? No. Threw for 240 yards, no touchdowns. But the rushing game again for Ohio State, it looked pretty good. You had Henderson, Travion Henderson, 104 yards. And you still had, Emeka Egbuka. I'm terrible at pronouncing this guy's name. Egbuka, I think that's how it's pronounced. He still caught 96 yards, 96 yards receiving. And Marvin Harrison Jr. was pretty much a non-factor. Only 3 catches for 32 yards. But you know what? If you're Ohio State, you found a way to win, especially with the run game. Like, that to me is toughness. And that's what Ohio State, that was sort of their, people were sort of accusing, and Lou Holtz specifically, former head coach at Notre Dame, he specifically called them out. He said that they weren't a tough team. And hey, credit to them. They won in a tough way with the running the football. And I mean, Notre Dame played a pretty good game too. Sam Hartman was okay. He wasn't amazing. He threw for only 175 yards, had a touchdown. Estime had a 70-yard game. So it wasn't like Notre Dame played a terrible game. I think they finished terribly, but it's difficult with Notre Dame because it feels like they do this every year where they play a bunch of bad teams. They end up pretty high up in the rankings, and then they go into a bowl game and they just look like complete garbage. And this is a game where they had a chance to really, prove the haters wrong, right? To prove that they were a top 5 program in the country. And look, they just didn't do it. And when you lose in your house, it's especially worse. But yeah, I mean, I got to say, at least to their credit, they were wearing one of the sharpest uniforms. I mean, I love the light green with the gold helmet. It's beautiful. Beautiful. But look, credit to Ohio State. I'm still not totally a believer in them. I think that I think they are in the top 4, and I think of the top 4 teams, I think they're probably the worst. But speaking of that, we'll go ahead and take a look at the AP poll and break it down. Here we go. And it's loading. There we go. So a couple of moves. So Florida State moves out of the top 4 down to number 5. Ohio State moves up a couple of spots into the top 4. So playoffs, if they were to start today, Georgia, Michigan, Texas, and Ohio State. The thing I have a problem with is Ohio State. I think they should have moved up. I don't think they should have moved up that much. And I think Florida State, they won the game and it wasn't pretty, but I feel like you can't move them after winning a game, even if, they came back after the half, right? I don't know. It's hard for me to do that. I'm not really sure what the AP polls were thinking there, but okay. I guess they weren't big fans. USC dropped 3 spots out of the top 5. They're now at number 8. What happened to USC this week? I actually don't know. I did not point them out. Did they lose? They must have. Let's take a look. It's in a book. Reading Rainbow. They won. I guess they gave them 28 points. Look, they don't look like a juggernaut. They don't look like a juggernaut on defense. But Caleb Williams is legit. I don't really understand why they moved down 3 spots. But another credit to Washington. Washington moving into the top 7, now number 7. They move up a spot. A couple other moves. Notre Dame moves out of the top 10 down to 11. You have Washington State, man. Hey, jumping up 5 spots, 1 spot shy of the top 15. They're number 16. And Oregon State drops 5 spots. Tennessee moves up a couple. Florida moves up a couple. And you got Fresno State out of the Mountain West sitting at number 25. Credit where credit is due. They beat Purdue early. And hey, maybe they got something in Fresno State. I don't know. They're 4-0. They got Nevada. That's a rivalry game, isn't it? I don't know. Isn't that the Mountain West? I don't follow Mountain West football, okay? Cut me a break here. But not a whole lot of crazy movement It still is a little amazing to me that Georgia and Michigan I get it. They're both undefeated and they were both, like Georgia, obviously the reigning national champions, and Michigan, they look like the best team in the Big Ten, but Michigan hasn't played anybody. And I don't think really anybody in the Big Ten has necessarily played anybody. Georgia's going to play Auburn next week on the road. Michigan's going to play Nebraska on the road. I think depending on how those games play out, especially if they lose, obviously they're going down. But depending on how they win relative to how Ohio State plays against Maryland, how Florida State plays against Georgia Tech, how Texas plays against Baylor, we could see a shifting in the top two. I think this will be the week where things start to move a little bit there. I'd be shocked. I mean, I guess unless they win, unless they blow out both their teams. But I'd be shocked if we see any movement there. If that is what happens. If they lose and there's no movement, I would just pretty much throw out the AP poll, because at that point it's just unreliable. And some people already believe it is unreliable, and I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't really have much of an opinion. But before we wrap up college football, want to go ahead and preview this week in college football. So take a look at some of the matchups here. I already briefly talked about Michigan State and Iowa. That's going to be 7:30 Saturday Night Football, Big Ten stuff. Look, two teams outside of the top 25. Iowa has a really good defense, but a really, really bad offense. Apparently, they had 2 first downs last week against Penn State. I didn't think that was a real statistic, but I had to look at it, and in fact, it was. I'm not even going to go near it. So Michigan State, if they have a chance to win a game in a slow and pathetic offensive matchup, this would be the game, but I just don't really see it happening. Outside of that, you also have, of course, USC Colorado. That's going to be an interesting game. Big noon game. We'll see if Colorado bounces back after getting, completely shellacked. And I think it'll be a really good potential. I think this will be one for Caleb Williams, especially because Colorado has no defense, and Caleb Williams looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the draft class. So this will be the game to watch if you're, your team sucks in the NFL and you want to have some hope in something. Watch USC Colorado, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fox. A couple of other games potentially to watch out for. Hey, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan. Anybody? No. Where'd you guys go? Hello? Okay. All right. Georgia Auburn. I mean, it's an SEC matchup. I don't anticipate Auburn's gonna win, but you have a top 25 matchup here. Technically, Texas taking on Kansas at home. It could be an interesting game. I doubt it, but this will be, I think, another test for Texas. Obviously, they beat Alabama on the road. This is going to be another test for them because Kansas is not a terrible team, but they're not a great team. So I think Texas, that could be an interesting game. 3:30 on ESPN, on ABC. Yeah, this week doesn't really have a whole lot of great games. Not going to lie. Well, okay, here we go. LSU Ole Miss. That's a 6:00 game. That should be a pretty good game. Brian Kelly, trying to keep the ship afloat there. And Ole Miss played a pretty tough game against Alabama. That should be an interesting game. Other than that, Notre Dame Duke. That could be a pretty good one too, because Duke, look, I know people think of them for basketball, but they're number 17 in the country. So this could be an interesting matchup. A good chance for Notre Dame to potentially bounce back, keep themselves potentially in the top 10. So that, I think that's probably the game of the week for me. I mean, it's the 7:30 ABC game. So hey, that's the game I'd be looking out for on Saturday night. 7:30 Duke, Notre Dame, Our Lady playing Duke. I don't know why they're called Duke. Maybe they're a big fan of, the royal family or something. Other than that, I mean, Alabama plays Mississippi State. Maybe that might be fun if Alabama loses. But I don't know. And Washington plays Arizona at 10, if you decide you have no self-respect and you wanted to stay up for Pac-12. So, all that said and done, we are going to wrap up the show with our picks for this week. So Seth is obviously not here, but he has sent in the picks to me via messenger pigeon, otherwise known as text message. So last week, Seth actually beat me for the first time, which is funny because he's not here and he won't get to brag about it. It was a rough week for me. Only 9 games right. But we're looking to bounce back here. So let me go ahead and grab the music. Let's see. Week 1, 2, 3. This is week 4. So let me grab Seth's picks as well. And we are off to the races. Let's play the music. 27. That should be fine. All right. Here we go. So, Thursday Night Football kicking off the week. Lions heading on the road, taking on the Packers. Seth has the Lions. I agree. I'm taking the Lions here. Look, Lions coming off a nice victory against the Falcons. Packers got a pretty lucky win over the Saints, as far as I'm concerned. They looked sloppy offensively a lot of that game, and they were giving up 17 to arguably one of the most pathetic offenses I've ever seen. Now, I know 17 is not a lot, but look, I think the Lions, especially if Taylor Decker, if David Montgomery, if they come back and they're ready for that game, I think the Lions have a very good shot of going out there and getting the win, going 3-1 through the first 4 weeks. Up next, Falcons head to Jacksonville, take on the Jaguars. Seth is taking the Falcons. Ooh, that is a fascinating pick. Look, the Falcons, they've looked good, but I'm going to go with the Jaguars here. Okay, look, back-to-back rough weeks for the Jags. They're in win-now mode. I think the Falcons, obviously, they're also going to be in win-now mode, but they're in a little bit less of a pressure situation. They're 2-1. You know, if they lose this game, they're still 500. They still have their season ahead of them. And in a ratty division like their own, they have a chance to win that division with just 9 wins. I think the Jaguars, they're very desperate. They can't go down 1-3. Like that would be very, very bad for the Jaguars. No doubt about it. So I'm going to take the Jaguars to get the win here. Up next, arguably one of the best games of the week here. The Dolphins heading to Buffalo, taking on the Bills. Seth is going to take the Dolphins. And I will agree. Look, the Bills, they look pretty good against the Commanders. No doubt about it. They blew them out. It was like 36-5 or something like that. And did I not? I forgot to set it. Or no, I did. I'm good. So, look. The Bills look like a pretty good team, but the Dolphins look like they might be the most powerful offense in the league. So, it's hard for me. I know it's going to be on the road, and Bills Mafia is going to be there. It's going to be a tough game. Probably the toughest game the Dolphins have faced all year. And I think they're going to pass this test with flying colors. I got the Dolphins winning this game. Up next, the Vikings take on the Panthers. Which winless team is going to get their first win first? Seth thinks the Vikings, and I am going to have to agree, unfortunately. Look, the Vikings are bad, but they're not 0-3 bad. They've had a lot of close games, and just last week, they probably should have won that game if not for amazing luck for the Chargers, believe it or not, actually had some good luck. And, I mean, the Panthers are just, there's not a good team. Their O-line is very, very bad. And the Vikings, I think, have the leading, the sack leader in the NFL on their team. Is it Danielle Hunter? Or I think that's his name. Something like that. So, I don't know. I feel like they got a good chance to win this game. I'm going to go with the Vikings to win it. Up next, we have quite possibly one of the rattiest games I've ever seen in my entire life. We have the Broncos taking on the Bears. And Seth is going to take the Broncos to win this game. And look, I mean, if you're the Broncos, you have to win this game. I know it's on the road. I know Justin Fields is desperate to get a win with the Bears, but he is so bad. That Bears team is so bad. If the Broncos can't win this game, then Sean Payton should be fired. And I know it's only 4 weeks in, and I know he hasn't been. I'm sorry, you can't go 0-4 as supposedly a Hall of Fame coach. You just can't do it. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos. Up next, the Ravens taking on the Browns on the road. Seth has the Ravens. I'm going to go away with the win here. Now, this is a weird game because I don't know which Browns team I'm going to get. Because last week, Browns offense looked pretty dang good, and their defense especially looked really good. And with the Ravens, I don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to decide to be a good player. But what I will say is he has a astute record against the Browns. I think he's certainly got a winning record against them, but he just finds ways to beat the Browns. And I just don't know that I really believe in Deshaun Watson. I believe probably in Lamar Jackson more than I believe in Deshaun Watson. I think for that, I'm going to go with the Ravens. Up next, the Steelers take on the Texans on the road. Seth is going to take the Steelers to win this game. Look, okay. Steelers have a really, really bad offense, and the Texans looked pretty solid offensively last week. And CJ Stroud, hey man, he's made some strides. It seems like they might have something going. I'm going to actually go off the beaten path. I'm going to take the Texans to win this game. The Rams heading to Indianapolis, taking on the Colts. Seth is going to take the Rams to win this one. I'm going to agree. Look, the Rams did not look great on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, but they cut it pretty close. It was not like a blowout by any means. And the Colts, I think, got pretty lucky up against the Ravens there with Justin Tucker missing a game-winning field goal. So I'm gonna take the Rams to bounce back and win this one. I don't know. Like, I love Minshew, but I don't know that he's gonna last them for more than a few weeks while Anthony Richardson is trying to find his head. Up next, we have Buccaneers Saints. Seth is going to take the Buccaneers. Now, this is an interesting matchup because this is two teams that are not in great situations right now. Buccaneers coming off of a tough loss to the Eagles on Monday night. Saints coming off of a tough loss to the Packers, where they lost Derek Carr. I kind of had to agree with him, though. I'm going to go with the Bucs. I think they're going to be a little bit more desperate. And Baker Mayfield is not a bad quarterback. He had a not great game, but I think they're going to bounce back here. I think they're going to get the win. Up next, the Commanders taking on the Eagles. Seth has the Eagles winning this game, and I'm going to have to agree. Eagles are much better than I think we gave them credit the first 3 weeks. Defensively, Jalen Carter and all them cats, they look like studs. And hey, credit to DeAndre Swift. He looks pretty good with them as well. Their running game has been pretty solid. And Jalen Hurts is starting to put it together, starting to look like he might add something there. And the Commanders, they just got destroyed by the Bills. So it's hard for me to trust Sam Howell in that offense up against the Eagles defense. So I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game. Up next, the Bengals take on the Titans. A little AFC Wildcard 2021 rematch against these two teams who have very much so changed where they were since that game. And Seth is going to go with the Bengals here. I'm going to agree. The Bengals, they looked like the Bengals that we thought we had on Monday night against the Rams. Now, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty all the time. Burrow still had that interception there near the end. And they didn't score too many touchdowns, but they had scoring drives. They were getting people down the field. And the Titans look so bad. They're so boring. I can't believe it. I just can't. I'm sorry. Up next, the Raiders heading to LA, taking on division rival Chargers. Seth is going to take the Chargers to win this game, and I am going to agree. What Josh McDaniels did last week on Sunday Night Football is criminal. He had a chance to tie the game up with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and he elected to go for the field goal to try to get a stop with 1:50. So what? Get like a solid 1 minute of ball where you're caught in your own 30 at the most? I don't know what he was thinking there. And look, Brandon Staley isn't much of a genius either. He also got bailed out by his stupid decision making. And look, this is going to be at home, technically. It's probably going to be more Raiders fans there than Chargers fans because of the Oakland situation. But I don't know. I think the Chargers have just more talent, and I think that talent is going to hold them over. Although Mike Williams out for the season, which is unfortunate to see, and Seth is not here to emotionally cope with that. So that's unfortunate. Hope he's doing okay. Hope the Home Depot is not wearing him down too much. Up next, we have the Patriots at the Cowboys. And Seth is taking the Cowboys look, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the Patriots won the game against the Jets, and Bill Belichick is not an idiot coach. And the Cowboys are coached by an idiot coach in Mike McCarthy. Do they have a bounce back, though? That's the question. Yeah, they probably have a bounce back. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I hate to do it, but yeah, they probably win the game. They probably bounce back. The Patriots are still an incredibly boring team offensively. I mean, they really didn't look all that impressive against the Jets, who, to be fair, have a really good defense. But, I mean, I got to go with the Cowboys. I think that 1 week is probably the anomaly. But we'll see. We'll see. Up next, we have the Cardinals heading to San Fran to take on the 49ers. Seth is going to take the 49ers, and that's absolutely right. Of course the 49ers are going to win this game because the 49ers look like easily one of, if not the best team in the NFL right now. And they're coming off a 10 days rest. And now, I want to give credit. Cardinals are fighting for their life. They're playing some pretty good football over the past couple of weeks. So I don't think this is necessarily going to be a blowout, but I do think the 49ers are going to win this game. Hometown crowd, 10-day break. I think they're going to come out and look pretty solid. Then, Sunday Night Football. Chiefs head to New York, or rather, New Jersey, East Rutherford, take on the Jets. Seth taking the Chiefs, and yeah, that seems like a pretty obvious pick. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes up against Zach Wilson, or Trevor Siemian, actually, who was just picked up off the street. Who, I don't know, maybe he's going to be the starting quarterback by Sunday. But, yeah, the Chiefs looked absolutely like world beaters last week. And I know it's going to be on the road, and that Jets defense is pretty darn good. I just don't know if it's going to be good enough to contain for that awful offense. So, yeah, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this game. And finally, Monday Night Football. We get back to singular games on Monday night. The Seahawks head to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the Giants. Seth is going to take the Seahawks. And look, we agree on a lot of these, especially near the end. I'm going to agree. Seahawks are going to win this game. Geno looks like Geno of last year. And it's not, world-beating, but it's solid numbers. The past 2 weeks now, he's looked like a really competent quarterback, and I think the Giants are they're regressing pretty hard. So it's going to be rough for them to be able to try to come back and win this game. I mean, if they win, then you know what? They keep their season hopes alive. It'd be a nice marquee win, but I just don't really see it. I think the Seahawks are going to come away with the win here. So, all that being said, here are our picks. We only have a couple that we disagree on. So, started off, Lions, Packers. We both got the Lions. Falcons, Jaguars. Seth's got the Falcons. I've got the Jaguars. Dolphins, Bills. We both got the Dolphins. Vikings, Panthers. We both got the Vikings. Broncos, Bears. We both got the Broncos. Ravens, Browns. We both got the Ravens. Steelers, Texans. Seth's got the Steelers. I've got the Texans. Rams, Colts. We both got the Rams. Buccaneers, Saints. We both got the Buccaneers. Commanders, Eagles. We both got the Eagles. Bengals, Titans. We both have the Bengals. Raiders, Chargers. We both have the Chargers. Patriots, Cowboys. We both have the Cowboys. Cardinals, 49ers. We both have the 49ers. Chiefs, Jets. We both have the Chiefs. And Seahawks, Giants. We both have the Giants. Or the Seahawks, I should say. I totally just buffed that. Whoops. I got to make sure I didn't. Whoops. I meant the Seahawks. We both have the Seahawks. I'm tired. My voice is gone. I have not drank any water for the past hour and a half, and my throat might blow up. This was a bad decision by me. I should have just grabbed my water at the beginning of the show. But we'll be back next week, and in fact, I will be back this Thursday night, live reacting, play-by-play, probably a nervous wreck, watching the Lions, Packers. Hopefully we win. I just for my own sake, I need a win, please. Please, I need a win. I need my weekend to be good. Yeah, I'll see you. Hopefully Seth will be back next week. No guarantees because Home Depot is basically a criminal organization. Have a good night, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and not rescind that statement at all, and I'm totally kidding. I'm actually being joking. Goodbye, everybody.